Santo na vida do crente.
Glória a Deus.
Atos dos Apóstolos é para mostrar quem é o Espírito Santo. Porque até então, até Atos, né, que no caso os evangelhos, era Jesus Cristo o foco, o centro de tudo. E agora Jesus Cristo passa a bola para o Espírito Santo. É a vez do Espírito Santo atuar na vida da igreja. E quantas vezes eu ouvi falar que aquilo que aconteceu em Atos só aconteceu em Atos. A igreja de hoje não tem isso mais. Eu já ouvi isso? Alguém já ouviu isso? A igreja de hoje não mais experimenta isso. Foi para aquele tempo, porque precisava haver aquela disseminação da ação do Espírito Santo na vida das pessoas. E quantas vezes a gente aprende coisas, como o pastor Marcos estava pregando ontem, né? Falando sobre quantas vezes a gente ensina coisas que às vezes não estão na palavra. Às vezes passa despercebido, ou a gente não entende bem, ou a gente não se aprofunda bem e acaba falando coisas que não são uma realidade. Não era bem isso que Cristo queria dizer, o que a Bíblia queria dizer. E aí, por isso, tantas seitas, tantas heresias estão dentro das igrejas, porque a gente não entende a palavra. Porque a gente não pesquisa. Isso que eu falo sempre para vocês, eu não vou cansar de falar até o dia que Deus me tirar daqui. Pesquise, estude, vai buscar o hebraico, o grego. Eu sei que é difícil, mas não é impossível. Porque a gente precisa disso, a gente precisa desse material, a gente precisa pesquisar. Tem uma mensagem que eu aconselho vocês a ouvirem. O pastor Luciano Subirá, orvalho.com, quando ele fala sobre o dom de língua. São 3 mensagens. Vocês têm? Se pudesse passar para alguém, que ele deixa passar, né? Sobre o dom de línguas. Eu não lembro o título certo, eu sei que é sobre o dom de línguas. Se puder passar
sobre o Espírito Santo.
Isso, sobre a ação do dom de línguas.
Tem o DVD.
O
livro do DVD.
Você tem? Mas não é o livro, é a mensagem.
Tem no YouTube.
Tem no site da igreja dele, orvalho.com, tem as mensagens completas em CD. Então eu aconselho vocês a ouvirem, porque ele faz um esclarecimento muito grande sobre o dom de línguas e ele faz a separação do que é o dom de línguas em cada texto, que ele representava em cada texto e como ele se manifestava diferentemente. Isso é muito bom da gente ouvir, porque eu não vou ter tempo aqui de me desmiuçar sobre isso.
E ele também é o que é ter liberdade de testemunha de Cristo.
Esse eu ainda não ouvi, eu até vi lá.
Vai falar exatamente sobre o Espírito Santo para a igreja, o que do Espírito Santo, derramamento do Espírito, para que a igreja seja testemunha.
Eu ouvi essa semana essa mensagem. Eu cheguei a abrir o site, mas eu estava sem tempo, porque eu tinha algumas coisas para fazer. Eu olhei esse tema e sabia que era para eu ouvir, mas não dava tempo. Mas essa semana eu vou ouvir. Então, a gente precisa entender a ação do Espírito Santo na nossa vida, na vida da igreja de hoje. A gente precisa captar como o Espírito Santo atuou no Pentecostes e durante todo o crescimento, o nascimento da igreja e como ele atua até hoje. A gente precisa entender isso. Atos é apaixonante. É um livro que a gente vai ver o crescimento da igreja e a ação do Espírito Santo na vida das pessoas de uma forma tremenda. Na forma que a gente vai ver de Pedro, de Paulo, que são os 2 marcos dentro da igreja. A gente vai ver a ação do Espírito Santo através deles, como o Espírito Santo agiu. Então a gente precisa disso. E eu chamo cada um de vocês a estarem se aprofunda, a gente consegue entender aquilo que Deus espera da nossa vida, daquilo que Deus espera que nós façamos como igreja, mas também como pessoas, porque não é só como igreja um todo, mas como pessoas que eu sempre venho falando para nós isso aqui, coisas que eu não falo para outra turma que eu dou aula, porque eu sei que Deus tem algo para nós e Deus só me traz a falar para vocês. Quando chega na outra turma, eu não consigo passar aquilo que eu passo para vocês aqui, embora as aulas sejam diferentes, mas sempre a gente pega alguma coisa, mas não vai. Eu sei que Deus tem algo para fazer conosco e através de nós, mas é preciso que a gente tome posse disso. Você pode tomar posse? Toma posse daquilo que Deus quer falar contigo, porque o Espírito Santo quer atuar na tua vida de forma como nunca você experimentou. Amém. E esse mesmo Espírito que está na tua vida hoje é que quer fazer algo novo acontecer. E a gente vai nessas 5 aulas falar sobre isso. Qual é o versículo-chave de Atos?
Eu acho e faz uma divisão da igreja, os discípulos. E aí eles têm uma nova visão da capacitação do Espírito Santo para ir, porque até então eles não foram enviados.
Mas qual é esse texto que fala isso? Tem um texto-chave. Não. Atos ouvi. Mas recebereis poder. Essa ação. Mas isso aí.
Porque por um bom tempo eu fiquei orando para Deus, Senhor, tem o poder do Espírito Santo. Aí Deus falou, você sabe mesmo por que eu ganhei poder? Para
que esse poder?
É isso aí, o poder é para testemunhar.
É poder para testemunhar. Mas recebereis poder ao descer sobre vós o Espírito Santo. E ser-me-eis testemunhas, tanto em Jerusalém, como em toda a Judéia e Samaria e até o fim da terra. É isso que Deus quer. Você recebeu o poder para ser testemunha, tanto em Nova Iguaçu, como no Rio de Janeiro, como no Brasil, e até os confins da terra. Mas é para isso que esse poder está aí. Eu já falei, o Espírito Santo é chamado dínamos. E é o quê? O que quer dizer dínamos? Dinamite. Espírito Santo, uma das traduções em grego é dínamos. É dinamite. Então você tem uma dinamite apagada dentro de você? Não. A dinamite que está dentro de você, ela está muito acesa, só que você precisa deixar ela explodir. Amém? Amém. E essa dinamite vai explodir em nome de Jesus. Porque você recebeu a dinamite de Deus para ser testemunha, tanto em Nova Iguaçu como até os confins da terra. Isso que a gente vai ver esses dias. E eu trouxe para você esse vídeo aqui, esse documentário para você. Eu sei que está em inglês, às vezes você pode não conseguir alcançar tudo, tá? Entender tudo, mas eu quero que você veja. Eu quero que você veja, porque eu preciso começar o livro de Atos com isso. Porque a gente tem o livro de Atos muito lá. E ele está muito mais perto do que você imagina. Talvez você já tenha visto, mas se você viu, você vai ver de novo. E o Espírito Santo está aqui. Amém? O Espírito Santo não agiu só lá, ele está agindo aqui. Basta que a gente se comprometa a ouvir, a segui-lo, a fazer a vontade dele. Então, eu vou passar isso aqui para você. Não é tudo, isso aqui tem mais de 1 hora, eu tive mais de 1 hora, não tem como. E esse aqui é o terceiro. O título dele é Transformações. Esse é o Transformações 3. Isso quer dizer que já teve 1 e 2. Então, isso aqui é só para a gente entender o que Deus está fazendo pelo mundo. Presta atenção.
Revival is not only believe in revival because it is historical. God has done it in history. And because it is communal, it changes community. And it is practical, it changes people, it makes people involved. And it's spiritual, it changes the whole spiritual tone, eliminating sin and crime. It is just logically the thing that is necessary.
Let your rain fall in this desert.
Societal transformation at a regional level is unusual, but it is no aberration. As history reveals, it will occur whenever and wherever God's Spirit is given room. Like the High Arctic, Scotland's remote Outer Hebrides echo with tales of the supernatural. And like the far north, this rocky, windswept armada seems an improbable place for God to visit. Yet the heavens have been rent over this ancient land with remarkable regularity. These visitations have been called revivals, but they are unlike anything most of us have ever experienced.
History records gatherings of 9,000 people, but that's difficult to take in because there were only 20,000 people in the island.
In 1949, the presence of God descended yet again, this time in the parish of Barmas. The reflect divisions within the church. Some clergymen refused to believe that God could do a great work that did not begin with them. When the refreshing did come, they opposed it bitterly.
There was such tremendous opposition from the largest denomination.
Mary Peckham was a teenager when the revival broke out, but she can still remember the spiritual coolness that preceded it.
The spiritual temperature in the island before the revival was religious, but certainly not lively. It was a spiritual winter.
Not everyone was ready to bundle up.
Revival is something that when you've experienced it, you always want to see it again.
One revival era convert, a godly store clerk by the name of Donald John Smith, recalls how local intercessors went to work.
People would pray all the time for this revival. They would be praying in the barn. You would hear a prayer.
Among the more fervent of these prayer warriors were two elderly sisters, one of them nearly blind, praying for revival several times a week, often late into the night. They were gripped by the promise of Isaiah 44.
I will pour water on a thirsty land and streams upon the dry ground.
When I was housebound, she was in bed there. I used to read the Bible with them and pray with them, and you would feel the presence of the Lord. They knew their Lord.
Challenged by the faith of these godly women, 7 church leaders gathered in a nearby barn to pray. For months, they pled with God that He might kindle a greater appetite for His presence.
That was the defining moment of the beginnings of the revival.
It was 1949, in the middle of the year. As the elders continued their travail in the barn, they began to notice the lights in nearby crops and farmhouses burning late into the night. Some never went out at all. The people's hunger for God had overtaken their desire for sleep. The elders realized their prayers had been answered.
It was a community of
The faces would be tear-stained,
There was such an expectancy, such a desire,
and these prayers were travail. They were painful prayers,
such a longing that God would come.
and God answered.
With nothing more to delay them, Jehovah drew near.
Something very significant had happened the previous night. There was something quite strange, almost eerie, in the atmosphere of the house.
We felt this power, And afterwards, even the dishes were crackling. It was as if the Lord came down on a mighty wind. The house shook with power of prayer and the presence of the Lord.
And people were afraid because this was a supernatural happening.
The Shekinah glory of God descended upon the community. A tangible, supernatural light hovering around many of the farmhouses.
There was lights coming on houses. The glory of the Lord was just shining around that. They were all still. They couldn't say a word. What could they say? Be still and know that I am God. That's all they said.
Around 4 o'clock in the morning, a crowd of several hundred people gathered outside the community police station. Many had traveled from neighboring villages, drawn by an incomprehensible power.
Walking on the main road, they would be crying out to God to have mercy on them. They were lying down on the road for God to have mercy on them.
It was as if we were suddenly in eternity. Eternal issues, eternal things were very, very real to us.
A key figure in the unfolding revival was the Reverend Duncan Campbell, a fiery preacher with the United Free Church.
He'd storm up and down the pulpit, the perspiration would run down his face.
Oh, my dear people, listen, the secret of the Lord is within the hearing.
The meeting halls were packed.
Just as many unbelievers came, many all over the island were coming.
The church was crowded to capacity. People sat in the windows.
Just as many outside. Oh yes, just as many outside.
You can make a community crusade conscious, the fiery revivalist would say, but only God can make a community God conscious.
You see, the presence of God puts to place program. Not an evangelist, not a special effort, not anything at all organized on the basis of human endeavor, but an awareness of God that the whole community.
Soon the moving of God's Spirit was felt on other islands, including Harris, Bernera, and Tyree. But it was the revival on North Uist that Jean Blanchard remembers best. The year was 1957.
There was an awareness of God's power working throughout the island. People were being saved every night. Lives were being transformed. We could only say, God came alive.
As news of the revival spread, several reporters showed up on the island around Christmas time. Upon arriving at their hotel, they were promptly escorted into the bar by the local proprietor.
Look, he said, all this alcohol is here. He said, the people are not coming, they're going to the meetings. The revival meetings have just spoiled their sales.
Similar complaints were heard all over the islands.
Last day was Stephen's story, there's no doubt about that. The drinking houses of the village, they gradually disappeared one by one with the power of the revival. And it affected the whole community.
You couldn't be any different to what was happening. It was as if there was a canopy of an awareness of God over the whole island, and there was a complete transformation. And the people in the world knew it. God had come. That was the answer.
Having observed God's willingness to transform discrete territories and cultures, only one question remains. Can this happen at a national level? Is there any evidence of God at work in a modern state, a sovereign nation? The East African nation of Uganda seems an unlikely place to look for answers. Racked with demonic fevers, this one-time pearl of Africa has spent decades in a deep spiritual coma. Its very name has become synonymous with death, as the nursery of AIDS, and as Idi Amin's personal house of horrors.
I think Uganda has been a country of pain, a country which has gone through one military coup to another.
I know what it means to live in fear.
Pastor John Molindi was a teenager when the horror began.
People have been killed in thousands, massacres, whole villages were massacred. And sometimes you will not know exactly who is doing the killing.
Those who listen to John Malindi's vivid tales may squirm.
His body lay there for 2 days.
Or even weep.
And the baby had pulled out the breast of a dead mother.
But they will always remember.
We did not recognize what we were fighting against.
Uganda's history, like that of many African nations, is filled with magic practices and secret rituals. Fetishes known as Mayembe were everywhere. And kings, even to the days of Idi Amin, are known to have offered human sacrifices.
Africans are covenant people, if I may say. Much of what we have is covenanted to the devil.
Our history tells us that our ancestors worship other gods other than the God of Abraham.
For Uganda, the consequence of this idolatry has been a long season of fear and pain.
What I knew about Idi Amin was a towering figure with what around his weight, and wanted his presence felt all over.
Journalist Mark Kukuza grew up under the shadow of Uganda's infamous tyrant. Like many of his countrymen, he was optimistic when Amin's overthrow led to the return of former President Milton Obote.
But I thought that maybe Obote would be better than Idi Amin. It wasn't.
There were powers of darkness behind these people that you're looking at, which were tearing apart this nation. In those days, it was common to find bodies lying by the roadside, and sometimes people would go to look over just to make sure, is it the person they know, a loved one? If not, they would just go on.
And it wasn't just soldiers doing the killing.
I was born to die.
Pastor Jackson Sinyonga was just 3 months old when his mother threw him into the garbage.
My grandma picked me up.
Assuming he would die within a matter of days, an aunt agreed to take him in. But the boy lived, if only to revisit the pain.
My father was murdered in '79 during Idi Amin. And at the funeral, that's when I first saw the picture of the face of my mother. Never a letter, never a picture, no nothing. And I was already a teenager.
Sadly, Jackson's father was part of a national epidemic.
1 day passed, 2 days without your loved one coming home. Then you know maybe he's dead. So the first place to go to would be Namabe Forest. It was a forest of death. You could feel the spirit of death there, the heaviness of death.
Prayer meetings went underground. Pastors circulated between as many as 10 groups a day, always at great peril, and often arriving home in the wee hours.
The soldiers had power to do whatever they wanted. There would be road checks. I was stopped in road checks many times, and you never know how you're going to come out.
On one occasion, a mother traveling with an infant was asked for the baby's identity papers.
And of course, babies don't have identity papers, and the baby was snatched from her, thrown up into the air, and the soldier raised a knife, and the baby came and plunged with that knife. And by 1984, they began killing churchmen. They began killing pastors.
Pastor Jotham Mutebi was in the middle of a sermon when Amin's soldiers burst into his church with guns blazing. As the bullets tore through the sanctuary, several elderly women rose and made their way to the altar.
And when I saw them, I thought these people were so desperate and that they needed comfort. So I raised up my arms and prayed over them. But I came to learn later that the reason they came, they wanted to die with me, their pastor.
Instead, Pastor Mutebi and his parishioners were herded into hijacked trucks and taken to the dreaded Nakasero Center.
Just a few meters away from where we are was this Nakasero State Research Bureau. That was the torture chambers.
The sadism and violence were unspeakable.
They could put 60 people in a room that is just by 3 by 3 meters. And they're crammed in to the point that a person would die and stay upright, held up by the bodies of the other living ones. There were no investigations. Things would happen and that would be the end of it.
It seemed the entire world had turned its back on the horrors in Uganda.
Men have deserted.
Millions died, the bodies clogging the Owen Falls Dam and the shores of nearby Lake Victoria.
We need to repent for whatever sins of our past. We defile our country. We are not any better than Cain.
This preoccupation with killing took its toll on the nation's economy and infrastructure.
The factories broke down, essential commodities became scarce and almost unknown.
We didn't get soap, we didn't get anything. The city was dirty and most of the buildings were damaged.
The morals of the people were so broken that you could not get a single thing done without having to pay for it.
Just when it seemed things could not get any worse, they did. This time, the news was delivered by the World Health Organization.
It was being predicted that by 1997, AIDS would be so badly done that 1/3 of the population would have died.
Dr. Patrobas Mufubenga is an accomplished physician serving with Uganda's National Institute of Health.
During this time, everybody was desperate. All of us were losing our dear ones.
Uganda has been crying to God, just like the voice was heard in Lama, women crying for their sons.
The pain, the suffering, the sorrow, the fear, no one could console.
They developed a saying before that saying that the God of Uganda had put to sleep.
In the middle of the night, this one old man who stood up holding his cane to the pastors and said, "Where is this God you preach about? God of power, the Moses prayer. What has Uganda done to God? It looks like God hates us."
From the depths of the grave I called for help, and you listened to my cry. I said, I have been banished from your sight, and I look again toward your holy temple.
My life is ebbing away. I remember you, Lord, and my prayer rose to you.
And they can pray day and night, day and night, day and night.
It came through a lot of crying, a lot of waiting.
There were times they had to go into the swamps and stay in the water, hidden in the virus reeds. So they would spend the whole day there, and in the night they would come back. And they would then get together and pray. This was deep, groaning prayer.
I am the man who has seen affliction. My eyes will flow unceasingly without relief until the Lord looks down from heaven and sees.
I would choose to seek God until he answers prayer. If he's not here to answer, then I'd rather die seeking him.
Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning.
And the presence of God would come down as the people cried out to God. And it would be manifest to the physical eye, like a cloud, a heavy cloud of mist hanging over the people. When you walk into the meeting, you are immediately swallowed in. You know, everything is tangled.